The Indiana Jones franchise, particularly the original trilogy, is widely recognized as a critical and financial success and continues to remain in the public consciousness today. Upon revisiting the series for the upcoming sequel, it was intriguing for me to find that the theme of the films and the protagonist's journey revolved so closely around religion and spirituality, a surprising aspect for such a mainstream action-adventure film. However, it's odd that the series' main character, Dr. Jones, displays clearly agnostic or at least skeptical beliefs.
Marcus, what are you trying to do? Scare me? You sound like my mother. We've known each other for a long time. I don't believe in magic, a lot of superstitious hocus pocus. I'm going after a find of incredible historical significance. You're talking about the boogeyman.
In our increasingly secular world, where sacred spaces, items, and rituals are fast giving way to modernity, increasing number of people today share similar non-religious beliefs. In comparison polls conducted by Trinity College in 1990 and 2008 documented dramatic increases in people identifying as having no religion. Atheists and agnostics also increased during that time. Although Dr. Jones often witnesses powerful divine events, his preoccupation is clearly in his own egotistical desire for the artifacts that he is seeking. It is essential then to question, what is Indiana Jones truly searching for? All stories tend to possess some spiritual elements. While this essay will focus on religion, it is crucial to recognize that religion is a broader academic term. No religion is a single monolith, and within any religion there are various interpretations and practices. The human spiritual journey often leads individuals to seek out religions that center on the sacred, such as sacred texts, spaces, rituals, or items. Psychologists and philosophers alike define spiritual journeys as an individual's search for transcendence from their singular self into a community, or more broadly, a mortal's search for immortality.
Eternal life, Dr. Jones. The gift of youth to whoever drinks from the Grail.
Not in the literal sense, but in finding grander meaning or purpose to their mortal life. Cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker sums up the works of others that have come before him with his summation of spirituality, wherein he believes all human endeavors are created from one's denial of death and desire to overcome death due to humans' innate self-awareness that their own existence is limited.
First Dad, then Marcus. Seem to have reached the age where life stops giving us things and starts taking them away.
He states, man transcends death not only by continuing to feed his appetites, but especially by finding a meaning for his life, some kind of larger scheme into which he fits. He may believe he has fulfilled God's purpose, or done his duty to his ancestors or family, or achieved something which has enriched mankind. Therefore, this essay aims to explore Dr. Jones' motivations to collect sacred relics and whether it stems from a genuine journey of spiritual fulfillment or some narcissistic desire for recognition, wealth, and power. By analyzing the religious and spiritual themes in Indiana Jones franchise, this essay hopes to provide a deeper understanding of the complexities of religion and spirituality in our modern world and our popular media. Part 1. The Sacred Canon. The original film in the series, Raiders of the Lost Ark, was born out of the desires of George Lucas of Star Wars fame to make an action-adventure film that he would really enjoy seeing, and Steven Spielberg's desire to make a particular type of film.
Well, you know what? I've always wanted to direct a James Bond picture. And George, so I got that beat. I said, what do you mean? He said, I have a better idea. It's called Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Lucas convinced his friend, instead of making a film about a globe-trotting spy defeating the enemies of democracy, they would instead resurrect from old pulp adventure novels and Republican serial B-movies about jungle-bound adventurers racing to uncover mystical artifacts from lost civilizations. The 5 canonical screen depictions of Indiana Jones include 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1983's Temple of Doom, 1990's The Last Crusade, 2003's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and the forthcoming film, Dial of Destiny. To assist us in this spiritual journey, I will be relying heavily on the works of Ernest Becker, as mentioned before, a real-life cultural anthropologist and author of Denial of Death and Escape from Evil. I hope that his works and his quotes will help us better understand Indiana Jones' motivations in connection with all human motivation. Part 2. Sacred Purpose. Origin of human drivenness is religious because man experiences creatureliness, the amassing of surplus. Then goes to the very heart of human motivation, the urge to stand out as a hero, to transcend the limitations of the human condition and achieve victory over importance and finitude. Ernest Becker, Escape from Evil. Indiana Jones lives in a world where spiritual artifacts embody the divine power bestowed on them either by some unseen deity or the spiritual belief of their long since deceased worshippers.
Lightning. Fire. Power of God or something.
The spiritual element is never really any concern to Dr. Jones. He is not interested in proof of divine power, although he has reverence and respect for it when he encounters it. But even in the face of that, he is often more interested in the attainment of the physical item itself. Dr. Jones is a professor of archaeology, or the study of human activity through the recovery and analysis of material culture, what we call artifacts or relics. He is driven to find and study physical materials to learn about different cultures around the world. To do this, he also studies written historical and religious texts to gain knowledge about these cultures, but it is always the physical item that he is most interested in.
I had it, Marcus. I had it in my hand. Belloc?
The opening of Raiders is one of the greatest introductions to an action-adventure film that I have ever seen. It is intense, mysterious, comedic at times, equal parts epic and iconic. It even tricks the audience into rooting for an act of grave robbery. This practice was not uncommon for the setting of the 1930s when the British Museum was collecting cultural artifacts from Egypt, India, and other indigenous cultures. It is also clearly right in the title. He is raiding these sacred temples of lost civilizations and cultures.
I'm sure everything you do for the museum conforms to the International Treaty for the Protection of Antiquities.
We are also quickly introduced to an antagonist, a fellow grave robber himself, René Belloc.
Too bad the Jovitos don't know you the way I do, Belloc.
Yes, too bad.
Who is racing Jones to claim the artifact for himself. This is important to the theme of the series. Indy is always in competition for these artifacts, not just from locals, but also from other rival treasure seekers, each with their own motivations. In the art of storytelling, this all makes Indy's grave robbing almost seem altruistic, even though Indy's motivations are stately driven by his own ego or desire to claim the artifact for himself that will preserve his own legacy within a museum right next to the artifact itself. He wishes to use these physical items not as representations of past civilization's greatness or success, but for his own greatness. This is confirmed later in the series when we have several chances to audit his lectures. And in The Last Crusade, he clearly states his motivation and personal philosophy.
Archaeology is the search for fact, not truth. If it's truth you're interested in, Dr. Tyree's philosophy class is right down the hall.
In this, Dr. Jones is making a joke about philosophy, which is defined as the pursuit of truth. But he, as a professor of archaeology, is only interested in the material, the tangible relics of past civilizations that just so happen to mostly be symbolic representations of religion.
That cross is an important artifact. It belongs in a museum.
Jones's philosophy is akin to the school of pragmatism founded by William James, the first American psychology professor. To Indy, these artifacts represent fact.
You cannot afford to take mythology at face value.
He does not prescribe to the fantastical. To him, this spiritual belief holds true throughout most of the series, that he only believes in the fact-based and tangible relics of primitive societies. And through these famous lost artifacts, he will transcend his ego and commune with the infinite.
This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you.
It belongs in a museum.
So do you.
Placing his name right next to them in the halls of museums where people will come and look at these items for years to come.
You know how long I've been looking for that?
All your life?
All my life.
Well done, Indy. Very well done indeed.
This is the same process by which people with faith in a higher power become humbled through prayer or meditation. Indy believes that he will find this through the obtainment of the unobtainable. Indy's motivations are usually pretty easy to track throughout his movies because at some point he usually blatantly states them.
He gets the Ark when we're finished.
Oh, yes.
Ark of the Covenant.
Nothing else has come close.
That thing represents everything we got into archaeology for in the first place.
Such as in Temple of Doom, which is technically a prequel as it's set in 1935, a year earlier from Raiders. Dr. Jones states that he is in the archaeology game for
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
which is evidenced by the opening set piece where he is trading an ancient artifact.
The diamond, Lau. The deal was for the diamond.
Two members of the Yakuza for a diamond, so clearly looking for fortune. The Last Crusade is slightly more unique. This is one of the first times we ever see Indiana Jones complete a step in the hero's journey called refusing the call to adventure.
Got the wrong Jones, Mr. Donovan. Why don't you try my father?
We already have. Your father is the man who's disappeared.
In this one, he is not looking for something, he is clearly looking for somebody.
Ask yourself, why do you seek the cup of Christ? Is it for his glory or for yours?
I didn't come for the cup of Christ. I came to find my father.
And in Crystal Skull, his motivations are a bit more obscure, but they include rescuing his old professor.
And Dr. Oxley?
What about him?
You're gonna kill him.
As well as Marion, and defeating the KGB. Part 3. Sacred Relics. A relic is something that has been wrestled from time, made secure from time's corrosive power, and saved from the natural process of decay that swallows up all things. A relic is a kind of permanent symbol, a permanent testament to the fact that there is something beyond man's reach, something that is absolute and enduring. Ernest Becker, Escape from Evil. As mentioned, each of the films offers a villainous foil or rival seeker to Indy with similar but more malicious motivations, symbolizing the dark side of Indy's egotistical pursuits.
Our methods have not differed as much as you pretend. I am a shadowy reflection of you. It will take only a nudge to make you like me, to push you out of the light.
Now you're getting nasty.
As we go through each film's villain, we will also discuss in more detail the artifacts they are in pursuit of, as well as their respected mythological origins. There are always about two villains in every Indiana Jones film. There is the one that mirrors Indy's ambition to obtain the artifact to suit their own grandiosity, and then there are those that wish to use the artifacts for more political ends.
You see, over the last 2 years, the Nazis have had teams of archaeologists running around the world looking for all kinds of religious artifacts. Hitler's a nut on the subject. He's crazy. He's obsessed with the occult.
This is exemplified early on in Raiders, where the Nazis are searching for the Ark of the Covenant.
And Hitler's interest in this.
Oh, yeah. The Bible speaks of the Ark leveling mountains and laying waste to entire regions. An army which carries the Ark before it is invincible.
Their desire for this item is to subjugate their enemies and to rule over them. Although a fictional film, this has some roots in history, where Hitler, and particularly the Nazi Party, was very interested in ancient artifacts, not just of religious importance, but also of any cultural significance, in an attempt to rewrite or recontextualize history into a sacred past around what they called the Aryan race, their claimed lineage of Germanic people who themselves are not a coherent race of people, but a mingling of tribal people from all over Europe. And therein lies the nuanced battle that Indy is waging as the hero, fighting between contemporary political uses for religious artifacts and their associated religious pasts. Belloc, in Raiders, represents the dark side of Indy's ambition.
Do you realize what the Ark is? It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God. And it's within my reach.
Belloc wants to use the Ark to obtain his own transcendence by literally speaking to God and becoming his prophet here on Earth.
All your life has been spent in pursuit of archaeological relics.
Inside the Ark are treasures beyond your wildest aspirations. You want to see it open as well as I. Indiana, we are simply passing through history. This is history.
That is his vision of transcendence, where Indy believes in finding and studying it, putting his name next to it in a museum, and writing countless academic articles about his definitive fact that he has found. However, he is not willing to sell out the item in order to achieve that grandiosity. He clearly finds it morally reprehensible to use those items in such way. Which carries on to Crusades, where character motivations are largely the same. The Nazis again want to obtain the Holy Grail. Instead of repurposing a Hebrew artifact this time, they are looking for a symbol of Christian faith that will perhaps legitimize their rule over the Western world, which is largely Christian. The wealthy benefactor Donovan initially hires both Indy and his father, but turns out to be looking to assist the Nazis in uncovering the Grail and benefit from its life-giving power.
Nazis want to write themselves into the Grail legend. Take on the world. Well, they're welcome. But I want the Grail itself. Hitler can have the world, but he can't take it with him. I'm going to be drinking my own health when he's gone the way of the dodo.
Elsa also turns out to be a turncoat. She is the foil to Indy. She pursues the Grail for her own grandiosity, for the same reason that Belloc pursued the Ark in Raiders.
Think of me. I believe in the Grail, not the swastika.
You stood up to be counted with the enemy of everything that the Grail stands for. Who gives a damn what you think?
You do!
In this one, Indy searches for the Grail only out of obligation to locating his father. The Grail representing his father's lifelong quest for transcendence.
May he who illuminated this illuminate me.
Doom might get a little obscure. This pattern is harder when there are no Nazis. However, I believe both factions exist, and I also believe that there's a perhaps stronger case to be made for a different character to be the political manipulator. As stated in this one, Indy is searching for fortune and glory, either academic fame or monetary fortune. This is his egotistical drive put into words.
Because somebody believes the good luck rock from this village is one of the lost Shankara stones.
What is Sankara?
Fortune and glory, kid.
The politically motivated antagonist greets him when he arrives. The Prime Minister, or the Magistrate, runs the local Raj government for the British colonial government.
Ah, I remember first hearing your name when I was up at Oxford.
Oh.
I'm Chatar Lal, Prime Minister to His Highness the Maharaja Pankot.
He is the one who is using the Thuggee rituals to control the local population. And the Maharaj, who is just a young child. Molarum, the Thuggee priest, is the one searching for transcendence through the stone. In order to obtain all of them, he will go as far as to rip the hearts out of non-believers in ritual sacrifice in front of his followers to demand loyalty, as well as enslave, starve, and torture children. This guy's pretty bad. The Temple of Doom is often derived for its depiction of Indian culture and Hindu religion, which is unfortunate because it is one of my favorite action-adventure films, especially when I was a child. And for the record, I want to state that Indian cuisine is actually amazing, and this film uses it as the butt of a joke several times. From my understanding, Hindi mythology is also poorly represented. The film represents Kali as a devil-like evil entity, instead of a more complex representation of a feminine storm god that reflects the balance of nature and destructive force that brings new life. Also, there's mind control blood and voodoo dolls in this film. They're not really representative of this culture either. But either way, there are those two specific separate characters using the stones for political and egotistical ends. And here's where I'm going to do a little rewrite. If I was rewriting this in the modern context, I believe the British government would be a better stand-in for the Nazis, particularly in this time in Indian history, where India was ruled by the British Empire, who would have been seeking to manipulate the population into subjugation. In Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we don't have the Nazis, but we have the KGB, who state they are literally trying to use the skulls for the purpose of mind controlling the West. Clearly, political ends.
To peer across the world and know the enemy's secrets. To place our thoughts into the minds of your leaders. Make your teachers teach the true version of history. Your soldiers attack on our command.
In rewatching the film, I thought perhaps Ray Winstone's character Mac would perhaps be the one searching for transcendence through the use of the skulls, but he's clearly only motivated by money.
You think this is about flags? About uniforms? You think this is about lines on a map?
It's just about money.
Not only money, a gigantic pile of money.
Or John Hurt's character of Harold Oxley, but don't really get any clear motivations from him either. Perhaps this one does not have a clear foil to Indy. Part 4. Sacred Power. Hubris means forgetting where the real source of power lies, and imagining that it is in oneself. Ernest Becker, Escape from Evil. For a second, I would like to explain my own spiritual or religious beliefs, and that is in the spiritual philosophy of pantheism, which is a belief that there is no difference between the natural world and God, sometimes expressed as the belief that God and the universe are one and the same. I enjoy this because it allows me to incorporate all mythologies and religious teachings into one belief structure. Concepts of pantheism can be found in the Eastern traditions of Buddhism and has roots in Western culture that goes back to the Stoics. The idea of sharing mythology also has roots in Hinduism. And Temple of Doom is critical in opening up this franchise to other mythologies, as is the only one that truly steps out of the Abrahamic Judeo-Christian mythology. As stated before, in the world of Indiana Jones, the power of religion is symbolically represented in the artifacts of their mythology. In the real world, power of religion lies not in artifacts or even in sacred text, but in the community that is built around those sacred items, texts, rituals, or holidays. The community that together negotiates the shared moral and ethical values that are then spread to others and passed down to generations. But in Indy's world, these mythologies are real.
Do you believe, Marcus? The search for the cup of Christ is the search for the divine in all of us. But if you want facts, Indy, I've none to give you. At my age, I'm prepared to take a few things on faith.
And the artifacts that represent those religions have divine power that affects the outcomes of those that try to use them for their own grandiose financial or political purposes. Briefly, I would quickly like to touch on the fact that the fictional universe of the Indiana Jones film does seem to follow literal translations of sacred texts, such as the Bible. And people in our world also believe in literal translations of the Bible and sacred text. However, I implore people to use a more critical eye and to perceive these sacred texts figuratively or allegorically instead of literally, for there is so much more meaning and symbolism in those stories that can be found than merely in the text. As we established earlier, Indy has pragmatic beliefs, not taking mythology at face value and pursuing facts over truth. Dr. Jones' critical thinking would be very useful in our world, and it is metaphorical interpretations of mythology that save him. Such as refusing to look at the Ark.
Don't look at it. Shut your eyes, Mary, and don't look at it no matter what happens.
Which is also a symbolic reference of blind faith in God's existence, which is a tenet of Judaism. Throughout the series, it is always hubris that is the downfall of Indy's rivals. They believe they can control this divine power inside the relics, whereas our hero Indy is always humbled by divine power, which is why he is able to walk away with the item, if only for a short time. Doom is a great example of this.
You betrayed Shiva.
The stones are lost again as Jones and his foil fight over them. The last stone, the one from the village, burns Mullerum's hand as he tries to save it, which causes him to fall. The final test to receive the Holy Grail is also one of faith.
But choose wisely, for as the true Grail will bring you life, the false Grail will take it from you.
Jones's possession of the divine artifacts is always fleeting, representing that all power is temporary and must be passed on. William James stated in his lectures on states of mysticism that all states of transcendence are fleeting.
It's ours, Indy. Yours and mine.
Elsa, don't cross the seal. The knight warned us not to take the Grail from here.
To sum up, what Indy was really after was fortune and glory for his own egotistical, grandiose desire. But what he often found time and time again was humility in the face of divine power.
Elsa never really believed in the Grail. She thought she'd found a prize.
Doom sums up the role and purpose of spirituality and religion perfectly in its final moment. As in the other Indiana Jones films, the hero is now humbled by divine power represented by the artifact he has been pursuing, and he is obligated to give it back, not before returning the enslaved children back to the village. The village that was once barren, dark, joyless, is now lush, vibrant, and joyful. The village shaman greets Indy as if he was an old friend, and knew that he would be successful and was expecting him.
Now, you can see the magic of the rock.
I understand its power now.
At the end of Crusade, he is reunited emotionally with his father.
What did you find, Dad? Illumination.
Indy even finds transcendence and humility in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when he realizes the aliens themselves are creatures of curiosity that seek lost knowledge from foreign civilizations themselves.
Samara.
This place is the motherlode.
There are artifacts from every era of early history. They were archaeologists.
What Indy was really after was fortune and glory for his own egotistical, grandiose desire. But what he often found time and time again was humility in the face of divine power.
What for? They'd just put it in a museum, it'd be another rock collecting dust.
And momentary transcendence outside of the natural world. He ended up connecting to communities that shared in his experience with the divine. Whether or not it changed his skepticism is not really of any importance.
And what did you find, Junior?
Junior? Dad?
It's always about the friends he made along the way, the adventure, the journey.
I don't know what they've got there.
Well, I know what I've got here.
Through his connection to them, he has found his transcendent and experienced something divine. Final part, sacred culture. Besides Kingdom of the Crystal Skull being a rather disappointing film, as it features poorly written story and uninteresting visuals.
What are you looking at, Daddy-O? She's getting away!
What bothers me about this film is that it deters from the other entries in the pantheistic view, that all mythologies have within them divine power. That is because the ancient alien theory, which is more in common with the science fiction plot, in my mind, robs the South American culture of its place in the pantheon of Indiana Jones' sacred religions. I'm not saying this was done for malicious reasons, I'm just making the point that it's a departure from the themes of the series. The film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, dismisses the divine authority of Native American religions and their cultural accomplishments by saying it was done by aliens.
Someone came and taught the Yuga farming, irrigation.
And to make a point about that, I would like to go back to Ernest Becker one more time and his description of culture. He states, "It's very important for students of man to be clear about this. Culture itself is sacred, since it is the religion that assures in some way the perpetuation of its members." He goes on, "Everything in culture is fabricated and given meaning by the mind, a meaning that was not given by physical nature. Culture is in a sense supernatural, and all systemizations of culture have the same goal, to raise men above nature and assure them that in some ways their lives count in the universe more than merely physical things count." The Indiana Jones franchise is one that I grew up with and enjoy, obviously. And although it can be dismissed as just another blockbuster action-adventure movie series, to me it is mythology. Mythology that follows in the tradition of primitive man telling stories around a communal fire or altar. A good myth can dazzle the mind, inform children of the dangers of the world, and teach people how to navigate the natural world humbly. The first shaman to tell a story is the predecessor of the modern professor of psychology holding court in a lecture hall. These films, for better or worse, were an exposure to a spiritual journey that I look forward to continuing in the next installment of the series and many, many other films to come. This has been a production of Minimum Effort Media. There are new videos here on the first Friday of every month. I do plan to return to this style of video essay more often, as long as I can keep a good writing schedule up. And thank you for watching.